the one team that we're supposed to look to maybe give us some positivity in this town, the Knicks, they have been disappointing. And on a night at the Garden tonight that is going to be special by all accounts. I mean, look for tickets. You can't probably get in the building for under $400. I'm talking about even the upper level seats. And that is not because the Knicks are hot. It's not because the Knicks are playing well the way that they did a year ago. It's because the Warriors are coming to town. And far too often, this town and that building has been amped up and hyped up, and the excitement has been around the opponent as opposed to the actual team that plays there regularly with the Knicks. And while it's great to see Steph Curry in person, who wouldn't want to see Steph Curry play? Who wouldn't want to see him go break the record? And obviously that's why, at least a part of the reason why the tickets are really ridiculous. But it is going to be a big-time event later on tonight at the world's most famous. And it's because of Steph and him trying to break the record here. The all-time three-point record needs 1 to tie, 2 to break it. But it's not about the Knicks. And the Knicks, off of last year, were supposed to be a good team this year. Even if you thought, all right, they were going to take a little step back. Maybe they're not really the 4 seed like they were a year ago. All right, they lost to Atlanta in that first round. Extremely disappointing. But they still should be okay. They still should be a playoff team. Right now, they are 12th in the conference. The Knicks are 12-15 and going in the wrong direction. This is a team who already lost to Orlando twice this year. Are the Knicks good at home? No. Do they play any defense? No. Do they score? No. And now you throw on top of it, they're without R.J. Barrett, Obi Toppin, and now Quentin Grimes, 3 of the guys you actually want to see. If it's not going to be about the results this year, well, then it's about the development of the younger guys. Obi, R.J., Grimes certainly fit that category. That's a whole nother issue. These teams now dealing with the COVID issues, whether it's the NFL, the NHL, basketball. I mean, it's all over the place now where it's going to become a problem again because you can't just keep running teams out there and playing these games where they have depleted rosters. It's not right. Now, I'm not saying they need to shut down the games. They need to figure something out. I want the games to continue. I don't want to have any stoppages. However, it's not right. We saw with the Islanders a couple weeks back. You can't just keep doing it. If you're going to have players forced to sit out because of it, then you got to slow down with the games here. Reschedule, postpone, whatever. But here we are again with another team in this town that is extremely disappointing. And the focus is on the Warriors coming to town as opposed to the Knicks at the world's most famous. Now, can they go out there and play a good game? I mean, maybe. I wouldn't anticipate it, especially that they're depleted, but it is the second night of a back-to-back for the Warriors. The Knicks are at home. Man, what does that mean, really? I'm sure the Warriors are huge favorites in the game. I would anticipate the Knicks getting smoked and Steph breaking the record and all the pageantry that comes along with it. And I'm sure Reggie Miller is going to go nuts on TNT. Oh, yeah, look at that. Reggie, I still can't stand you for years of damage that you did to me as a youngster. But the point is the Knicks should be better. And this should be a game that we as a whole in this town should be excited about. Not going to see Steph, although that's part of it, going to beat the villain, the opponent, sure. Similar to Trae Young or, LeBron, whatever. When the Lakers come, it's a big game. Christmas Day probably be a big deal because, Trae Young and the hated Atlanta Hawks now with that rivalry. But it should also be about the Knicks and what they could do as far as moving up those standings, even this early in the regular season. Against a quality opponent, you want to go in there and feel good about your team. This is a Knicks team that, a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday at the Garden, which I was at that afternoon game, they lost by 30 to Denver. They lost by maybe 16, but they were down by 30 to Denver the majority of the time in that game. They have been a bad team, and they've regressed. This was supposed to be a year where we could look at the Knicks and say, all right, well, even if it is a little bit of a step back from last year, the better days are ahead. There's direction. There's a foundation that was laid last year with Tibbs in his first year, with some of the younger guys, with Julius Randle playing like an all-star, was an all-star, playing like an MVP, as a matter of fact. Well, where has that gone this year? Where is that? And the 2 guys that they bring in, Fournier and Kemba Walker. By the way, I'd be curious to see if we actually see Kemba back in the rotation tonight. I wouldn't expect it, but, at some point, the guys are dropping like flies here with the health and safety protocols. Kemba may get a chance. But the two guys they brought in, Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, have been terrible. The reason why Kemba Walker isn't playing is because he's no good at this point in his career. It's sad. I hate to say it. I love Kemba as a person, as a player. It seems like he says all the right things as a person, holds himself accountable, not being selfish. He's a good teammate. But he's been awful. Evan Fournier, same thing. Guy can't do anything. Supposed to be a shooter. They need scoring. And he's inconsistent. Outside of the first week of the season, Fournier's been inconsistent. The young players haven't, R.J. Barrett hasn't gotten to that level yet to where you can count on him consistently. Again, he's going to be out. So in this particular game tonight, it's not really relevant. But big picture, they need R.J. Barrett to be a guy who's going to score 20, 25 points a night consistently and get to that borderline all-star level. What are we watching here with the Knicks? There are 3 teams that are worse than them in the Eastern Conference. That's not where we should be. And I know you don't want to go nuts, and I didn't. Even a couple weeks ago saying, will you relax? All right, so they lost to the Bulls. Big deal. They came back. They made it the game. It happens. Remember where we were with this team. And we can't forget. I mean, the Knicks have been irrelevant for a long, which is hard to believe. The Knicks have been irrelevant for a long time in this town. Last year was so much fun from start to finish of that season. You saw a young group. You saw a well-coached team, a team that played hard, that represented this city well, that made this city proud. You were proud to be a Knicks fan last year, rooting for that team. They weren't the most talented. They couldn't score. They didn't shoot the ball very well. But you were proud of the effort night in, night out. That's gone. Where'd that go? What, did Tibbs forget how to coach? Is it really Alfred Payton and Reggie Bullock that the Knicks are missing? They're broken right now. And as bad as it's been over the last couple of decades, off of last year, there should not be this step back year, this significant step back to where they went from 4 seed last year to where they are now outside looking in, even with the play-in teams. 1 through 10. They can't be a top 10 team, and they might not be. Now, there's reports and rumors about the Knicks making a trade with, maybe go get it in Miles Turner or Dame Lillard. While I'd love to see those guys, I said it yesterday, I don't think Dame Lillard is the answer at this point. Play on the court, sure, but I'm not going out there trading top picks and trading the young players that have potential for Dame Lillard, especially for a guy at his age who's going to want $100 million for a 2-year extension. That, to me, does not make sense. I don't want to go down that road. I like the idea of adding a star. Who wouldn't? And it would make it immediately more exciting. Is that going to mean that they're going to have sustained success long term? The answer to me would be no. Miles Turner, I think, would be somebody who would fit what they might need to do as a team. Stretch the floor, a big who can shoot. They're kind of half weighing it right now, and I guess that's the biggest issue that I have. Find an identity. What is it? Is it last year where they had that defense, where they played hard night in, night out, and maybe they just missed some consistent shooting? Because it doesn't look anything like that. Or are they trying to get away from the defense because they don't have players anymore that can defend, especially the perimeter, get away from that? And I know last year, too, the defense being so good was a result of sometimes the numbers, where they left guys open from three-point range and teams weren't knocking them down in the regular season. Come postseason, Atlanta did knock them down, and you saw the difference. But still, the Knicks played hard last year, night in, night out. Competitive games, night in, night out. Even in the losses, there were positives. Complete opposite this year. So now if you can't play defense and you don't have that personnel really, you're not a great defensive team, then go offensive. But they're not good enough to do that as currently constructed. So are they going to go get Miles Turner and have a big that can knock down the three and stretch the floor? What you hope Obi Toppin can be one day? I don't like the idea of Ben Simmons. So all these guys, Simmons is out there, Lillard's out there, and I love Dame Lillard as a player, but I mentioned the other reasons why I don't think it's the right fit at this particular point. I want no part of Ben Simmons. He's the exact opposite of what the Knicks need. He is a problem that the Sixers can't get rid of. I want no part of him. And he doesn't shoot. The Knicks need a scoring point guard. I don't want Ben Simmons. Useless. But bigger picture, here we are again on a Otherwise, mundane Tuesday. I mean, you want to get into Cardinals and Rams last night? Yeah, it was a good football game, and Rams showed that they're going to be back here and a team to be at least a threat in the NFC. Sure, go around the league a little bit, 4 weeks to go in the NFL. But with the football teams, we already know. We've already discussed it with Judge and with the Jets and Wilson. We've been there, done that. On to the offseason with these teams. The Knicks right now should be carrying us. But there's no excitement. The only excitement on a big night at the Garden, a hot ticket, the hottest ticket in town, maybe all year at the Garden. Until we get to the Rangers playoffs and maybe a Stanley Cup final. Maybe the hottest ticket all year at the world's most famous arena tonight with Steph Curry coming in. And it's about the Warriors. It's not even about, the Knicks, can they go out there and compete? Because they're getting run out of the building by teams like the Magic or the Denver Nuggets. Struggling even with the Rockets a month ago. Losing on the road to Indiana. The Knicks aren't even beating the bad teams anymore. That's a problem. Nobody thought, I know we know the difference with Brooklyn and New York, even without Kyrie Irving, as long as he is going to be out for the Nets. That's a team that realistically can go win a championship. We know the Knicks can't. We knew that coming in. However, you did expect to see, especially after the start to the year, you did expect to see a team that was going to be a legitimate playoff team, probably top 6 at worst in that play-in tournament in the bottom of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, at worst. Right now on the outside looking in, and there's really no promise to think that they're going to get to where we expected them to be, at least not now. And a team that gets blown out regularly, a team that does not compete hard night in, night out, a team that does not play defense, and a team, obviously, that is not an offensive team. So why are we here where we are with the Knicks? With Tom Thibodeau in year 2? How did this happen? How did they get so bad? Oh, it's early. It's only, 23 games, 24, whatever it is, 27 games. No. 27 games is not nothing to sneeze at in the NBA. And the way that they've gotten worse when you watch them, that's a problem. I said it early in the year. I loved last year's team. This year's team, outside of that first week, not the same feeling. And the results, obviously, are showing. Adam is calling from Staten Island. What's up, Adam?
We spoke last week about Kemba, and I have to say, he's not the long-term solution, but Alec Burke is not a starting point guard. He's a guy who gives you a jolt off the bench. I like him as a player. I like him as a scorer off the bench. The fact that he won't go back to Kemba, at the very least, just to have a guy who can bring the ball up the floor. I had to watch Julius Randle turn the ball over 3 possessions in a row the other game. It's like, I just don't see what is the loss of reinserting this guy in the lineup. And then you had all those guys out with COVID protocols, and you still kept him on the bench.
He might have to get in there tonight. I don't think I heard the morning show a little bit talking about how maybe he did something, off the court that we don't know about. I'm not buying that. I get why people are curious, like yourself, Adam, wondering what went on. I just really believe Walker is washed. Tibbs knows it, and he doesn't want to waste any time giving him any minutes. He's a veteran player, so why are you going to treat him then, here, get a couple of minutes, or you're only going to be in the event that, we have absolutely nobody. Maybe he plays tonight because they don't have anybody. They're running out of players, but Kemba Walker is not the answer. Tibbs knows that. They're trying to build something here moving forward. Walker is not it.
Well, I agree that he's not necessarily the answer for the long term at all, but Alec Burke is certainly not the answer as a starting point guard. So then why not start quickly, or why not start the rookie? I mean, if you're going to go that route, I have no problem with those guys getting minutes, those young guys getting minutes. But to not have him, you gave up on him pretty quick, and you might know something we don't. You're the coach, and you see him in practice. I get all that. But to just throw in the towel on this guy when we clearly don't have another answer, I mean, the way they've been playing, and we haven't had a point guard, to be honest with you, in 20 years.
Oh, so, I'm aware.
I have to tell you, I can't help but to continuously go back to that draft in Nikita where you allowed Phil Jackson to draft a guy
terrible
for the triangle and then fire Phil Jackson.
Right.
It's like you could have had
a
Donovan
week after.
Mitchell.
No, horrible. It's horrible. And that's, we talk about Adam, and thank you for the call. We talk about it with the Giants, how the problems predate Gettleman. And it's all in the draft. You notice the common theme here? It's the drafts. The Jets in the draft, the Giants in the draft, the Knicks in the draft. That's why these teams stink, because of misdrafting. Poor drafting. Knox. Imagine if Knox was a player by now. Those two picks, and look, we're beyond that with the Knicks. You want to move forward instead of looking back. I understand that, but the reason why it's taking so long, imagine if Ntilikina was actually a player, or if they took Donovan Mitchell, where they'd be, how far ahead, or how much that would have sped up the process here in the rebuild. Or if they, instead of Kevin Knox, took a player, or if Knox was a player and turned into something. Those kill you. You have to hit on those first rounders. And they didn't, and it set them back. Now, the good news is the last couple years haven't been bad. Quickly, Toppin, RJ's got it. RJ Barrett, and that's why he's the focal point to me. You know what Randall is. He's going to drive you nuts a little bit, bringing the ball up, especially at the end of games. Well, right now, he is their best option. The Knicks are at their best with Julius Randle being the point forward. He was that last year. They were successful with that. This year, when they kind of got away from that to start the season, they were worse off because of it. They need to get back to that and have Randall be at the very least what he was a year ago until they could figure out a better mix, a better group of players here, until they could get a real scoring point guard. Walker is not it. But at least they hit here. Now, RJ's got to turn into an all-star, but at least he's a player. Quickly looks like a player. Toppin, Grimes contributing. It's a shame you're not going to see three of those guys tonight without Grimes, RJ, or Obi. But at least you start to see some of the draft picks look like they have potential. That's the only way out. There is no quick fix. Miles Turner, Dame Lillard, yeah, it sounds great. And Miles Turner may help them in the short term. But long term, build it to a championship type level through the draft. Matt calling from New City. What's up, Matt?
What's up, Sal? How you doing?
Good, Matt. How are you?
As good. As far as the Knicks regression, to me, the biggest blame doesn't come with Tibbs or Randall or any one player. To me, it comes down to the front office. They committed almost $26 million to Kemba and Fournier. That's 2/3 of their starting lineup, and they stink. So now they're not a defensive team anymore, which was their identity last year, and those two guys are not helping them. And think about what they could have done with that, $26 million or whatever it is. They botched the offseason. That's the biggest reason they stink. Look at the Knicks roster. How many players would even start on a good team? Not many.
Well, I mean, I think they do have some talent, but you're right. I mean, you're talking about a good team, and thanks for the call, Matt. Their starting five to start the year, abysmal. They couldn't keep doing it. I mean, they did break it up. They had to. And that's a knock. Now, Kemba, you can't knock that signing because they got him for essentially nothing. They figured they'd take a chance on him. They desperately needed a point guard. They didn't have one. They didn't have the answer there. It wasn't like he prevented them from going out and getting somebody else. I would not have gotten Lonzo Ball. I didn't want to go all in and get him because I don't think he's the answer either. He's another guy who can't shoot. The Knicks need a shooting point guard, a guy who can score. They need a superstar point guard. They haven't been able to get one. They haven't been able to draft one. Emmanuel Quickly, maybe the closest thing to it, and even him, he's way too inconsistent, and he's not ready for that next step. But you're right, they missed in the offseason. Not only did they miss with Kemba and Fournier, but they also got away from what made them successful a year ago. I can understand the thinking. You're thinking, all right, the defense is because Tibbs is here. He's the guy who's going to build that foundation, and regardless of, we bring in Fournier who can't play defense or not, he should be able to make it work defensively. At least that's what I would think. You have the big centers, rim protecting, and the defense kind of works from there. Maybe get those guys to play a little bit better defense than they played in their career. Knicks clearly needed scoring. So for me, on the surface, I'm thinking, all right, well, they needed scoring. You get an opportunity with Kemba. You get him for nothing. Let's see what he's got. And Fournier, I liked him as a shooter. And by the way, he is their best shooter. Imagine that. Fournier, unfortunately, is their best shooter. But those two guys have not worked out. And that is a problem. It's part of the problem. Randall, regression. RJ not consistently taking that next step. Slowly but surely, quickly. And Obi, they're just not there yet. Grimes not getting any minutes until, on Sunday when he actually exploded. I mean, these guys can be impactful players. My direction would be this. Forget this season. Play the young guys. Give them minutes. This season's a lost cause at this point. Best case scenario, what are you going to do? Get in the play-in tournament? Maybe get yourself to a first-round series that you're not going to win anyway? So it should be the focal point should be about the development of the young guys, finding out what you have exactly, who you may want to trade for whatever piece that might be out there that's not going to rip the team apart, but see what kind of pieces you have moving forward and say, okay, this is what this guy's going to be. This is what we need this guy to be. And then what do we need from here moving forward?